typical heart rate?
So 72 beats per minute.
Right. So 72 beats per minute. So that means the fundamental frequency will be around. The fundamental frequency, if you measure, this will be around say 1 second for simplicity. Although it will be less than 1 second, it will be about 0.8 seconds in most cases. So that means the fundamental frequency, which is this. If you take the Fourier transform of this waveform, you will find the maximum component at around 0.8 hertz. You will find the maximum of this, which is at this point, which is f here is equal to 0.8 hertz. Okay, so after that you go Fourier as this is almost a quasi-periodic waveform, so you will have components at 2f, 3f, 4f, which is 1 hertz, 2 hertz, 4 hertz, sorry, 3 hertz, 4 hertz, like that. So you will have only maximum components of this will be only be visible up to say 10 hertz. After 10 hertz, the components are almost too small. The frequency components in this waveform are too small to be very significant. So even if you sample this waveform at a Nyquist was covered in last year's electronics. So Nyquist rate is what is the minimum sampling rate that is required to reproduce this waveform with good fidelity is the double of the maximum frequencies which are present in this. Although there are frequencies which are present, high frequency components are present in this at this point where the waveform is rising very sharply. But even here, the components are not less more than 10 hertz. 10, 20 hertz. So even if you sample this waveform at around 50 hertz to 40 hertz, 50 hertz, you like 40 samples per second or 50 samples per second using a digital acquisition card, you will still be able to get this waveform very with a good fidelity. Okay. Then we come to the conventional mercury manometer, which is the gold standard of mercury of measuring blood pressure since more than 100 years. And still today, doctors still consider this as the most most reliable way and most accurate measurement of blood pressure is the mercury blood pressure manometer. So you all, I assume, have already have seen the mercury manometer, which is available with most clinicians. So the basic principle of that is based on the Bernoulli's principle. The Bernoulli's formula is this: P is equal to half rho v square plus rho g h is equal to constant. So the basic principle is the basic construction is was developed by Poiseuille, and it is called as a Poiseuille's mercury U-tube manometer. This is a simple U-tube manometer. This, for example, if you have both of these points as marked as 0, and you fill this tube with mercury, on both sides. Okay, you fill this tube with mercury from both sides. Then after that, what happens is here the pressure is, if you look at what was the pressure here, it is P atmosphere. Here also the pressure is P atmosphere. It is open to air on both sides. So P atmosphere, that's why. And the velocity of both of these, because at equilibrium, the velocity is 0 in both these points. So that means this becomes, this can be cancelled. And if I try to measure what is the pressure at this point due to left side and due to right side. Okay, so suppose from this point to this point is height, this point height is h left, and this point height is h right. Okay, so the pressure at this point due to the left side will be given by P atmosphere plus rho g. Rho is the density of mercury, which is about 13 kilograms per liter. Okay, 13 kg per liter, or 13 grams per millimeter cube, or cc, 13 grams per centimeter cube. Rho g h rho g h left, okay, g is the gravitational constant, is equal to, on the right side, from the right side, if you see what is the total pressure which is built at this point, will be P atmosphere plus rho g h right. Okay, so P atmosphere goes so this is the, if you look at it, HL is equal to HR, rho is equal to rho, G is equal to G, P atmosphere. So this will balance it out. If this at this point, the pressure due to both sides have to balance, because if they don't balance, that means the mercury has to move. That means mercury, sorry, this that means mercury will have to move in one direction or the other if they don't balance. So at this point, the pressure is balanced. Now after that, what happens is, if I apply a pressure here, if I apply a pressure on this side, which is P applied, then at this point, what will happen, this height will reduce by delta H. So this height here reduces by delta H. So if this height reduces by delta H, this height will increase by delta H on this side. Okay, so that means I can write this as PA plus P atmosphere plus rho g HL minus delta H is equal to P atmosphere plus rho g HR plus delta H. Okay, so here I can cancel P atmosphere. This HL equal to HR. Okay, HL was equal to HR in the initial case. So I will write this, I can cancel this HL HR part. So you have PA is equal to rho g into 2 delta H. Okay, rho g into 2 delta H. So what I mean to say is, once you apply a pressure here, you will have in this curve, in this tube, the mercury going down here delta H height, and mercury will go up from the 0 point delta H height. So whatever delta H height you observe here, you have to multiply that with 2, and then multiply with rho g into 2 delta H, and that will give you the value for the applied pressure here. Okay, so this is how we measure the pressure. We can measure the pressure in any which is the pressure which is applied on one side of the tube by looking at observing the height increase in the mercury on the other side of the tube. You can use mercury, you can even use water, but if you use water, what will happen, your rho will go down, because water has a density of water has a density of, anybody knows? Water has a density of 1 kg per centimeter cube. Okay, sorry, 1 gram per centimeter cube. 1 gram per cc, while mercury has a density of 13 kg per cc. Okay, so that means if I use water, I will have to use a tube which is 13 times longer. Okay, the tube has to be 13 times higher if I have to measure the same pressure. Okay, so your blood pressure monitors will become 13 times higher if you use the water instead of mercury. Okay, so as we have discussed, if you use a simple U tube, okay, your simple measurement is, if your height goes up by X, that means your total pressure is rho g 2 delta X. Okay, rho g into 2 delta X. But the way the mercury manometers are constructed is that you have a tank. You make a tank in which the mercury is stored. Okay, and this tank has a diameter, say, D tank, and then your tube has a diameter which is D, say tube. Okay, let me write it du. Now, so the volume within the tank is given by pi dt square, and the volume within the tube is given by, sorry, pi dt square h, if this is height h. Okay, or h tank, if this height is given by HT. And similarly, the volume which is within the tube is given by H tube. H is pretty inconvenient to use it on the presentation. So suppose this is H tube. Let me otherwise open it on my notebook. Any questions till now? It's a lot of time. Okay. So suppose this is one side of your this is your tank, and this tank is connecting to a tube which is of this height. Okay. So in this tank, suppose your mercury is filled until this point. Okay, which from the ground is H tank height, and on this side initially at when the pressure is 0, both side the height has to be same. So here also, here HU is the height of the mercury in the tube. Now initially H tank is equal to HU. Okay. Suppose this has a diameter which is D tank and this had a diameter which is DU. So the overall area under this, so the volume of mercury in this part will be given by pi dt by 2, or say let's take it as radius T and radius U. So then initial volume on left side will be pi RT square HT. Okay, so this is the volume on the left side, and on the volume on the right side will be given by pi pi R U square pi RU square HU. Okay, so these were the volume. Now suppose if HT if there is a delta HT change on the left side, that you applied a pressure which changed you applied a pressure on this side, due to which what will happen, a delta HT change happens on this side, then how much volume gets displaced? The volume which gets displaced is pi RT square delta HT. This is the volume which got displaced on the left side. The same volume has to go up on the right side, which will be given by pi RU square delta HU. Okay, so these two volumes have to be the same. Okay, so I can say like whatever, because what the user is seeing, user is not able to see what is there happening within the tank. User is only seeing what is happening on the tube. Okay, so if the user is observing height delta HU change, so that means delta HU is equal to delta HT multiplied by RT square by RU square. Okay, so if there is a ratio of 1:10 of the radius of the tank versus the tube, then what will happen? So delta HU is equal to 100 delta HT. Okay, so if this changes by 1 millimeter, this changes by 100 millimeters. Okay, the height here changes by 1 millimeter, here it changes by 100 millimeter. So this gives us the advantage in the sense that whatever rho gh is created here, rho gh is the measure of the pressure. Okay, whatever pressure is applied here, but that height, this height is a measure of what? This height is equal to what? This height is equal to delta HT plus delta HU. This height So if you have, say, this tank here, and you have this tank here, so what we are, if there is a pressure here, and due to that pressure, if you don't have pressure, what happens is both of these are at the same level. Once you apply a pressure, you want to see what is the height difference which is created. Okay, so this height difference is created by this column going down and this column going up from this point. Okay, so if both of the diameters are same, if this diameter and this diameter are the same, the height which this side goes down, the same height goes up. Okay, but if this diameter is 10 times that of this diameter, only 1 millimeter change on this will produce a 100 millimeter change in this. Okay, so this way your tank height can be very small compared to your tube height, and that's what you see in normal. If you go to find a mercury BP manometer, okay, so I don't know, you have to find out. Just a minute. So you see, this is the tank here. Okay, this small black one here is the tank. This one is the tube. So the tank height is much smaller than the tube height. Okay, and initially when it is at mercury manometer, let me find if I can get a diagram of this. Something like that. Okay, so this is the tank, this is the tube. So the tank diameter determines that how much is the if the tube diameter is even significant or not. What do I mean by that is that once I can move this side 100 millimeters by moving this side just 1 millimeter, what matters finally is this side's movement. This side's movement is negligible. The left side movement is negligible. So we can only consider rho gh as not the different rho gh. So rho gh, in the rho gh, so h was given by this delta ht plus delta hu. But if delta ht is very small compared to delta hu, we can ignore delta ht and simply put rho ghu as our measure of the pressure in the tank. Okay, so this is the calculation for tank size versus the meter size, the tube size. So let me go ahead. So then how is the final pressure calculation done? This you have probably done this experiment last semester again, most of you, where we measured the blood pressure. So you look at, you put the manometer's cuff. These are cuffed devices. So you put the cuff on the arm of the patient and you go above about 200, about 150 160 millimeters of mercury you go, because the expected pressure is within 120 to 130 millimeter mercury, the highest pressure in the arteries. So you take your cuff pressure by using that manual air pump to above 120 millimeter mercury, and after that you slowly start reducing the pressure, and then you will be able to hear the correct of sounds, which are a 5-phased sound, which you'll start hearing as soon as you start hitting the systolic pressure. As soon as you hit the systolic pressure, you will first hear a loud and clear cut snapping tone in the phase 1 when you start hitting the systolic pressure. After that, as you reduce the pressure, the sounds will start going down. Okay, and there are different phases in this. As biomedical engineers, you don't need to understand this too much, but in phase 2 there is a succession of murmurs. In phase 3 the sound almost appear like phase 1 again. Okay, the sound again goes up in between, and then it starts to go down in quality, becomes dull in phase 4, and phase 5 is the disappearance of all sounds. Okay, so your measurement of the final blood pressure or the diastolic blood pressure is at between phase 4 and phase 5. So this is the different amplitude, the amplitude of sound in different phases as you go on reducing the cuff pressure. So this is one, I don't know if you can above 130 or 150 millimeter mercury and start reducing it, and you'll be able to hear a sound. And you'll also be able to see the needle flipping. Okay. Okay, so this is how the measurement is performed. This is not a mercury manometer. This is called as an aneroid type mercury aneroid type manometer. These have become popular. This uses spring and mechanism. Yeah, this is a non-mercury manometer. This is called as. Well, let's go through this video again completely. So this is the plotting of the sounds. Okay, so this is. So this type of manometer is called as the aneroid type manometer. It uses diaphragm and spring assemblies behind it. These are considered little less accurate compared to the mercury manometer, and they also have less lifetime compared to mercury manometers. Certainly these are becoming the standard nowadays in most hospitals because mercury is getting phased out, because India is a signatory to the Minamata Convention, under which India is supposed to eliminate mercury from its healthcare by year 2020. So oscillometric method, this is a method which is used by automatic BP monitors, which are available in many of our homes. These are automatic monitors where you don't need a stethoscope. You simply put the cuff and switch on, switch on a button, and it takes the cuff pressure up and brings the cuff pressure down and measures tries to measure the pressure without the user intervention or without hearing any sounds. So the way this measurement is done is that you have a pressure transducer attached to the cuff, which measures the pressure oscillations. Wherever the pressure oscillations become maximum, so what happens is when you start to reduce the pressure, you start getting these oscillations. You remove this slope, you subtract this slope from this signal, then this signal becomes straight, okay, and you amplify the signal, and you will be able to see this kind of waveform. You find out where is the maximum of this, the envelope of the signal. Wherever the maximum of this envelope occurs, you go back to your original signal, where with the complete pressure decline information, and wherever that maximum occurred, you locate that point, and that is your mean pressure. Once you find the mean pressure, then the systolic and diastolic are empirically determined by formulas which are generally proprietary to their companies, which they have derived empirically by doing a lot of experiments over multiple patients or multiple subjects. These are considered of least accuracy compared to the other two methods, but these are most popular in home care and self-care environments where people want to monitor their BP in their home. But in clinical community, their acceptance of pressure measurements performed using mercury manometer and aneroid type is more compared to oscillometric type. So as I told, this is the method of oscillometric type. So you find the mean, then the systolic and diastolic with respect to the mean by taking the ratio of the mean. So mean multiplied, wherever the mean pressure occurs, for example, mean pressure occurred around 100, you multiply 100 with about 0.7 to get the diastolic pressure, and about 1.2 or 1.3 to get systolic pressure. So those factors are empirical, and they're determined by the company based on observation over hundreds of patients. Then cuff size is also of important concern in blood pressure measurement. So if you every patient has, depending on what is the patient's age and health or the weight and height profile, your cuff length is important. If you change if you use a wrong cuff length for measurement, your measurements will be off by maybe 10-20%. So typical measurement is length of the cuff is twice that of the breadth. Okay, cuff length is taken as half of this total length. So length of the cuff should be should be double of the width, and the correct cuff width should be 20% wider than the diameter of the arm. So this cuff width should be 20% larger than the diameter of the arm of the patient. Okay. So if you use wrong cuff size, so how do you characterize? So there will be errors, and the error will be if you take cuff width by arm circumference, okay, and plot this error plot. This is the measured value, and this is the actual value. So if your cuff width is less than your arm circumference, your measured value will be higher than your reference value. That is the actual value. And if your cuff width is lower than the arm circumference, okay, that is it is a thin cuff, then your measured value, like the pressure you will be measuring, will be lesser than the actual pressure within the arteries. So cuff size also matters during measurement. And second, another thing is importance of cuff location. So the cuff should be ideally placed parallel to the patient's heart. So when you are taking the measurement, you typically want the patient to place their arm, either on their side very comfortably like this, or you want to ask them to place their arms on a table, which is to the level of their chest or something. If the patient is measuring something like this, what will happen is there will be addition of rho GH factor. Rho GH factor, which is G here. Rho is the density of the blood. Okay, G is the gravitation constant, and height is the height from the heart to the location where you are measuring the blood pressure. So there can be as much of 24 millimeter mercury difference if there is a 1 foot difference in measurement. So if you change your arm, if you move your arm up and your difference from the heart to the location of the cuff is about 1 foot, you can expect a 20 millimeter mercury difference in the blood pressure measurements. Okay, so this and another thing which I forgot to mention is the speed of reducing the pressure. Okay, so when you are taking a measurement, when you are taking the measurement, you are bringing down the cuff pressure. You are bringing down the cuff pressure. Okay, so if you bring down the cuff pressure too fast, what will happen is you might miss the peak. Okay, you might miss the peak, and your reduction of the pressure curve, if you are moving it too fast, you might be measuring lower systolic pressure than what actually it is, because you might miss the peak and instead of hitting this peak, you might hitting this peak. Okay, if your measurement speed, if reduction in cuff pressure is too fast, if your reduction in cuff pressure is too slow, then also you might overestimate. I think you will underestimate the systolic pressure, because you might be hearing the sound for longer period of time while the pressure is coming down slowly. So these factors, so ideal rate of reduction of this pressure in the cuff is around 3 millimeters of mercury per heartbeat. Okay, so for every heartbeat that you hear, the rate should be such that it should be around 3 millimeters of mercury. It should not be like 10 millimeter of mercury. Very quickly you go up and then very quickly you are coming down. You can go up as quickly as you want, but while coming down, you have to have a steady rate of fall, and you should have a 3 millimeter mercury fall per heartbeat. So that will ensure a better measurement. And there are also nowadays different measurement paradigms which some other groups are trying is, for example, pulse wave velocity based measurement of blood pressure. So the idea is when the blood pressure increases, it's mostly because of the arterial stiffness increasing. So when the artery starts becoming stiffer, the blood flows faster in them. So if you can measure the pulse transit time by measuring electronically by putting a pressure transducer, say at the carotid artery and at the radial artery, you can measure, say, the carotid to radial pulse wave velocity. And if the blood pressure of someone is higher or lower, or you have taken a baseline measurement and you want to continuously track how the blood pressure is changing with time, then you can use pulse wave velocity to do some kind of tracking of blood pressure measurement. Although absolute blood pressure measurement is still not very accurate using pulse wave velocity measurement methods. Okay, so this is all I had to talk about today. Any questions, please ask. Any other questions regarding the course or regarding earlier lectures? Okay, then thank you for listening, and I may have to conduct a couple of more lectures. I'm not sure how many, but that's it for now. Okay, thank you for joining.